When I look back in 1988, I really had no idea that that year gave us so many bangers in the horror genre. And they gave us some serious doozies. I mean, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, came out that year. And that's a personal love of mine. Now, full disclosure, I've never been big on possession films. I tend to stay away from them. And the reason being is my old man was a bit of a drinker and a fiend. It's like he became something else. I sort of looked at that as him being possessed by something. It was silly, but to a little boy, it was pretty real. Now that I'm an adult, I can watch these movies and I can try to enjoy them a little bit more. Tonight with Night of the Demons in 1988, I wonder how much we'll enjoy it together, so let's talk about it. Now, the opening credits of this movie took way too long to get into everything. It had some slick animation, but that theme came straight off the reject pile from Castlevania circa Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, it looks like the events of this movie are taking place on Halloween night, and that's always a crowd pleaser. We've got Stooge driving his beater through town, and he looks every bit what his name would suggest. He's got a pretty girl in Helen riding shotgun, and he's got a guy dressed as a pirate named Raj in the backseat critiquing every move of his. Stooge torments this old man that they come upon, and then after they leave, Sal comes by and torments him just a little bit more, and you start to feel for the old guy because he's just walking home with his groceries. Then you realize this old guy doesn't really care much for kids, and he's got a sack full of apples, and he's got a package of razor blades, all for the trick-or-treaters that happen to descend upon his home that night. We see Jay and Judy, a gorgeous, all-American, clean-cut couple, talking on the phone, going over the plans for that evening. As far as Judy knows, they're going to be going to a school dance. Jay's got a different set of plans in mind because he found out that Angela, who's the goth girl in class, everybody sort of considers a weirdo, she is planning on throwing a Halloween party in the dreaded Hull House. Now, the Hull House is the neighborhood's haunted house. Nobody finds himself going within a few blocks of that place, and yet Jay is insistent on Judy going to a party with him, hosted by the creepiest girl in school. Now, as wholesome as Judy is, we see a lot of Judy in this opening scene, and nudity isn't something that's foreign to 80s films, but in this scene, Billy, who's her younger brother, jumps out of the closet, makes a very strange, off-putting remark about her body. Now, me personally, if I'd have seen my sisters in any state of undress at that time in my life, I'd have had to go bury my head in a blender just to get the image out. But speaking of nudity, enter Linnea Quigley. Now, everybody knows Linnea Quigley from the 80s, and where Linnea Quigley is, nudity is sure to follow. Here she plays Susie, and Susie is doing her very best as a girl in a short skirt, bending over in front of a couple of clerks of a gas station to distract them while Angela robs the place blind. She's taking liquor, she's taking snacks. Now, once they get outside, Susie's giggling. Angela thinks it's funny, but Susie's really worried about how many boys Angela has invited over to the party because she wants to tease and seduce them, whereas Angela just wants to scare every one of them. Angela assures her there's going to be plenty of warm bodies there. Don't you worry your pretty little head about it. Now, jumping back to Judy's house, we get Jay coming over to pick up Judy, and the mom has made some fudge that's the nastiest looking snack I think I've ever seen in any horror movie I've ever watched. And that's covering a lot of ground. I'm pretty old. On top of that, Judy's little brother, Billy, is a dick. I mean, this guy is a smarmy little prick, and he's someone you immediately root against. With girlfriend Judy in tow, Jay loads up into the car, goes to pick up Max and Franny, and they all four head over to the Halloween bash being hosted at the Hull House. A quick note here, though, they pass Stooge having car trouble, and Stooge is one of the most unlikable characters in any movie that I've ever seen. He's just obnoxious. I'm sure he's supposed to be over the top, but every time he's on the screen, I really do want to turn the movie off. And unfortunately, there's a few of those types of people in this movie. Now, the story of this Hull House that I've gathered from what I've seen is that it used to be a funeral home, and it's located next to a cemetery. The patriarch of the family killed everybody in the family before committing suicide himself. It's got everything that you want a house to have, lineage-wise, that you're about to go party at for the evening. Perfect place to try to get laid. Judy's there a total of about 15 seconds before she instantly wishes she'd have been back at the school dance. Everybody else there, though, they seem to be pretty psyched about hanging out there. And once Angela and Susie and then Sal and Stooge and all the rest of them show up, there's about 10 people in total. They decorate this place in record time, and they're off and running. And with the rock music playing at full bore, Susie's doing what any character Linnea Quigley plays is sure to do. She's dancing seductively. She's teasing all the boys. She's got all of their attention just before the radio completely dies. Now, Stooge is insistent. I just put batteries in that thing this morning. Angela, however, decides this is a perfect opportunity on Halloween in a creepy house to have a seance. So everybody decides to sit on this nasty floor and look into this filthy mirror. And the game plan is they all fixate on the image of one person until the glass fogs up black and we see a vision of that person from a past life. And it kind of starts to work too, because the glass starts to cloud over with black and somebody laughs, which breaks the concentration of everybody. Everybody looks away. Angela gets pissed, but Helen's still staring at the mirror and she sees a demon, a gnarly looking thing looking back at her, causes her to scream. She freaks out. Mirror falls and breaks into a million pieces. This is the catalyst event that awakens the demon in this Hull house that's been sitting dormant up until the point these guys show up, disturb him. He decides to flow through the house like a smoke straight into Susie's mouth. I said what I said. Now, the whole way this thing has gone down has freaked out even Angela, who's pretty unflappable when it comes to these things. She feels like something is off. These are all really bad omens, and she explains the difference between a haunted house and a possessed house. Now, a haunted house is inhabited by ghosts who used to be alive, living human beings, whereas a possessed house is inhabited by the demon, and a demon has never been in human form. It just lives within the house. I popped for that a little bit. That was a good explanation. She did it better than I did. Now, Raj and Helen want to bounce, and they look to leave. Susie insists, though, that everybody else stay before she transfers some of this demonic possession into Angela by way of a kiss, which all the boys enjoyed seeing. Then the rest of the group decides to start pairing off to go find different rooms of the house to disrobe in. It was a weird place for banging, that house was, but it was the 80s, and that's what they did. They banged wherever they could, evidently. So I heard. I was a kid. Where there was once a gate outside to exit through, it's now all brick wall. It surrounds all the property. There's no way to get out. Raj and Helen try, but they cannot find an opening. Then Helen disappears. Now, it wouldn't be an 80s horror film without some sort of melodrama surrounding sex. And Jay is trying to get Judy to sleep with him in that nasty kitchen of that nasty house, and she says flat out, "I'm not doing that." He gets pissed off, walks out, inadvertently locking her in the kitchen. Now, downstairs, the demon of Hull House, finding its way to Angela, turns out to be this perfect match made in heaven. Because she's dancing like a psychopath, freaks out Sal, seems to be right up Stooge's alley, though, so Stooge starts to get all over her. They kiss, she bites off his tongue. Stooge doesn't look as into it as he once was. While trying to round everybody up to get out of that place, Sal finds Susie in a bathroom, smearing lipstick all over herself, and he's like, "Nah, this party got real goofy real fast. I gotta go." Then we get the obligatory Linnea Quigley nude scene, and this part with her hiding that lipstick is one of the more well-known scenes in this movie. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty unsettling. It's pretty famous. They used it again when they remade this movie a handful of years later. Now, when I tell you that things ramp up fast in this movie, I'm talking Dominic Toretto fast. Things go quick. Helen's dead body falls on top of a car that Raj is trying to hide out in. Jay finds a topless Susie in a bathroom, and he's all into it up until she climbs on top of him, gives him a minute of satisfaction, then goes full Coyote Ugly on him. Max and Franny are going at it in a casket until Stooge happens upon them as a demon and seals both of them in the casket. Now, Judy getting locked in that kitchen is probably the best thing to happen to her up until this point in this movie. Sal winds up finding her, and they all look to get out of that place. Angela, however, starts to descend upon Judy, and Sal has himself a hero moment when he grabs her, and off the top of this house does a move that I can only compare to Rodney Dangerfield's triple lending from Back to School. If you know, you know. And it's Raj and Judy against the world. Now, I didn't have those two being the last people standing at that point on my bingo card, but there they were. Now, considering it's 1988 and the budget had to be pretty tight for this movie, the practical effects were okay. They weren't terrible, but a lot of these demons, they just roared in your face and gave you just enough time to pick a direction and run off into it. Fair enough ending here that only got made better by the old man with the apples and the razor blades getting a little bit of comeuppance at the end of this film. In fact, I gave this movie an extra half point just for that scene. Unlikable cast, convoluted story. It was an easy, short watch, though. It was carnage candy. It's what you want in a horror movie. I'm not going to say it ages gracefully, though, because I don't see very many instances where I'm just going to decide I want to watch Night of the Demons again. So for that reason, it's a 5 out of 10. I could feel differently about this thing next year. That's just the beauty of horror, and that's the beauty of growing older and aging gracefully. But for now, I'm going to pass on it. This is Aging Gracefully. I'm Matthew Essex. Stay away from those demons, gang. But I will see you on the other side.